Some of my viewers are not familiar with sofrito right here. This is what I call a sofrito. This is what I refer to whenever I mention that one of my ingredients will be sofrito. And what's inside this sofrito are this. I have garlic, onion, bell peppers. It could either be red, green, yellow bell peppers, garlic. Oh, that's garlic, of course. This is culantro, which is pretty much the same flavor of cilantro, but this is I believe is twice stronger than the flavor of cilantro. Cilantro is milder, so you could do without the cilantro if you have this, or if you don't have this, just kinda double up, or maybe, you know, add a little more of the cilantro if you want it to have that strong cilantro flavor along with this culantro. So these two are pretty much similar in flavor, one is stronger than the other. Okay, so this is what I call ají. When people see this, they think it's a hot pepper like habanero and you know, Scotch bonnet, but this is actually sweet, and that's why most Caribbean people call this ají dulce. Okay, so these ingredients here that you see here are what's in here, my sofrito mixture. Now I'm doing this because when I present a recipe which I'm wondering if someone would like to try it and just don't know what's in my sofrito, if I use sofrito alone, now they would know what's in here. These are the ingredients in my sofrito. Sometimes I would add this on along with my sofrito just so people could know what I am using as my ingredients for my recipe. So okay, ingredients of my sofrito, finished product once I put them all together. Okay, so today's recipe is basically vegetables stewed together, and what I have there is chickpeas, or garbanzo, which have been pre-cooked. I have the softening so that when I saute I won't have to wait for it to get soft, and that's what this is, chickpeas or garbanzos. I also have squash here, which my husband helped me peel last night. They are not easy to peel, but they're very delicious and nutritious. So that's squash. And another vegetable component are these leaves here. These are my sweet potato greens, which we harvested from my garden. And pardon me, I'm my camera in my hand today. I'm all disorganized today, but I'll get this straightened up in a little while. But these are sweet potato greens that you see there, and that's gonna be another component to our stew today. And what you see here are all the ingredients minus the tomato of my sofrito right there. The sofrito is the finished product after I have blend all of these aromatics that you see here. This is optional. I will be adding turmeric on my stewed vegetable, and to help thicken the sauce I will be putting some of this tomato paste. Okay, so let me go ahead and start prepping all of these ingredients, and I'll show you the process. So what you see in that pot is my extra light olive oil and the annatto seeds or achote. Now the way you do this is you heat up the oil, okay, never boiling. it will be a disaster if you have the boil very, very hot, almost a boiling point, because this thing will pop all over the place and it can be very dangerous. So you heat up the oil and then add your annatto seeds. That's to extract the color of the seed. And as you can see, okay, and just be careful not to let the oil overheat. So that's done. So now we got our achote oil here and our sofrito, which is the mixture of all the ingredients. Okay, so now with our sofrito mixture, we are going to add our chopped tomatoes. You probably noticed that I'm a bit disorganized today. I am multitasking. In my oven I have roast chicken going on, which I have put in there before I started my stewed garbanzo. And I'm also uploading some videos, and I realized I probably taken on more than I can handle, or bit off more than I could chew, so to speak. But okay, I have our sofrito and the tomato stewing in here. I'm gonna put it on low because I want all these ingredients to simmer very nicely until it develops the flavor, and then we'll go ahead and add the rest of the ingredients. Okay. Okay, let's mix this up. Okay, so the sofrito is stewing with our tomato. We are now going to add, this is an option, okay? It's optional. If you do not want to add your turmeric, you don't want to add turmeric on yours, you don't have to. I'm putting about a teaspoon of turmeric in here, and I'm going to let that cook nicely along with some tomato paste. Tomato paste will thicken the sauce, because I will go ahead and add some chicken broth in here to kind of help all of these ingredients to come together nicely. Okay, right now we are going to let it saute the sofrito and the rest of the aromatics here with the tomato, and we'll go ahead and let that saute. We'll come back for it and add the rest of the ingredients. Okay, let's cover that. Let that simmer nice and slow. That's the trick to this. Let it simmer nice and slow, develop the flavor. Ooh. Okay, so as you can see, our sofrito has released so much of its juices that it looks so much thicker, and the sofrito ingredients are actually nice and tender. And I'm going to add the chickpeas or the garbanzos to go ahead and start stewing along with the sofrito. I'm making sure that I only get the chickpeas, and I will not add the water that I bought the chickpeas with, because I want to make sure that there's no kind of impurity that came with the chickpeas, because this is fresh chickpeas, and although you washed it and all of that, you just never know what's in between those little skin of the chickpeas that you see there. You know, you want to make sure that there's no sand that or some kind of soil that got stuck with those seeds or garbanzos. So I boiled the garbanzos to make sure it's nice and tender, and now we are going to stew it with the sofrito. And you could add water if you're vegetarian and you would like to try this recipe. Instead of using what I'm using here, which is a chicken broth, go ahead and use water. You will do very well, and it will be just as delicious. Okay, so I add a little bit of chicken broth in there, which I probably should add a little more actually, because I want it to develop a little bit of sauce in it. Okay, so we're ready to add our squash or calabasa. Okay, we're going to allow this to get to nice and tender consistency. Then we'll go ahead and add the rest of the ingredients. Okay, at this point I have not added one bit of seasoning in this. Okay, so I'm using coarse sea salt. That's the one I grabbed first, so it doesn't matter coarse or fine sea salt as long as you're using sea salt. Okay, so we'll add that there for now, and then we'll check it later if we need a little more. And let's give it a little bit of fresh cracked black pepper. Okay, and get that in there, and we still have it boiling on a very low heat. I want it to simmer nice and slow, and we're going to put the lid back on, continue on simmering. Okay, at this point the squash is nice and tender, still got a little bit of, you know, crispness to it, a little bite to it, slightly al dente, and that's a perfect time to go ahead and add the sweet potato greens. Okay, I'm going to put that in the corner there. Now remember that it looks like I'm putting too much, but one of my video, the one I did before this, which is soup, it looked like I have so much, and by the time the greens has wilted and cooked through, you barely could notice it. Okay, so our stew is done cooking. Everything here is tender, and all I have to do now is kind of tweak the seasoning. I might need a little more salt. Wow, yum. You know what? The salt seasoning in it is just perfect.